We were very scared because we knew that this presence, this entity, was stalking us. We came to the brink of going crazy. We heard voices, my little boy telling me she's angry, the bad lady is there.
Many of you probably remember some of the many cases we had about haunted houses on the channel. For instance, the mansions in Villurquiza, Casilda Santa Fe and Ituzaingó, among many others. Not going too far, the last episode of the channel had a huge impact, even though the platform didn't show it as it should. Many people still haven't seen it. Today we have an amazing story, where we are going to know every detail that a family experienced in a haunted house in Chaco, where the paranormal activity is likely just as intense or even more so today. For a logical reason that you will understand, I will not be able to publish photos of the house, nor videos, nor even say the exact address. We are only going to name the locality where it is located. Since if a family is living in this place today, we have to respect their privacy. I ask you, please, to listen to this story until the end, because every detail is a moment of absolute terror, I assure you. But before we start, I want to thank everyone who joined us and participated yesterday in the first episode of Coordenada 3, a project that is underway, and if you haven't subscribed, I invite you to do so and join us every Friday for a new episode. Friends, now I won't keep you any longer, and we begin with this new paranormal story. Welcome. April 9th of the year 2018. A family's life was a hell. It's still active today. Oh my name is Ferencia, and I want to tell you what I experienced with my whole family in a house we bought a few years ago in Chaco. We never imagined going through moments like this. But I can assure you that it's much worse to experience it firsthand. Now I am going to tell you every detail of what happened and how it ended, if there is an end at all. I could tell you that April 9th of 2018 was the start of this great story. At that time, my husband, my son, who was 6 years old, and I were living in my grandmother's house. But for personal reasons that don't matter, we had to leave there. Then a hurried search began. Where should we move? That's how we were offered a house in Barranqueras. For those who don't know, this city is part of the metropolitan area of Resistencia in the province of Chaco. Keep in mind that we were desperate, we had to find a place urgently. And this house was not only very good because of its location, but also because the sale price was totally illogical considering the market of those years. You might wonder if this caught our attention. The truth is it did. But at that moment you don't stop to think about certain things, you simply look for the best solution, the most practical and economical, of course. This house had everything, and of course a few more things that we would find out in a very short time. One morning we spoke on the phone with the owner of this house, and he also indicated how to get there to see it and clear up all our doubts about its condition. It was located, or rather, it is still in a very old neighborhood of Barranquera. It was easy to get there, and when we saw it, we were very impressed by the state of neglect. It had been uninhabited for a long time. We didn't know the reasons, but also at the time, to be honest with you, we didn't care much about this issue. The overgrowth that was there was impressive, and in some parts it almost reached the ceiling. Much of the house was covered by trees, grass, vines, everything. While it was shocking to see it like this, we understood from what the owner told us that it was perfectly normal. No one was doing any maintenance on the house, so nature was taking it over. And partly because of this issue, according to him, was why he was selling it very, very cheap. They wanted someone to give it back the life it once had. All these romantic words had a hidden message that we didn't know. An important detail that we only started to take into account later was that this man never wanted to approach the house. For any concern, or to pick up the key and go see it, we met anywhere else or at his own house. According to him, due to lack of time, but later we found out that it was something else, completely different. This gentleman was terrified to enter that house. A few days later, having done a lot of calculations and thought it through, we coordinated everything with him. We closed the deal at his house. He gave us the key, house papers, and while some paperwork was still pending, we could already occupy the house. We finally had a home. It was our house. It took us several weeks to clean everything and condition it as best as possible to live comfortably. I remember the first day we went in there, I felt a very ugly atmosphere, but I logically associated it with how everything was abandoned, dirty, full of insects, weeds everywhere, even some plants had entered the interior through some openings. We did the painting, fixed the masonry in several places, solved the issue with the water pipes, changed the tank, faucets. In short, as I said before, we refurbished the house as best as possible and started a new stage in our life. To start telling you everything that happened in this story, the first thing we noticed was the temperature and the darkness. No matter what it was like outside or what time of day it was, inside it was always freezing and gloomy. Being a rather small house with rather low ceilings, it was very, very strange. At first we thought it was because of all the vegetation surrounding the house and the confinement it had for so many years, but no. Weeks went by. The land was totally clean, the house was in good condition, and the temperature was always cold. And no matter how many windows we opened or what light we put in, it seemed to always be dark.
The week we were there, it was always 1 a.m. It was like feeling that they were running around or throwing things on the roof like stones. And we would go outside to see if there was a cat or something on the roof. And the strangest thing is that there were no cats in the block, and we would go out to look and there was nothing.
At first we took all this as something natural. We did not attribute it to paranormal matters. First, because we weren't scared until that moment, and second, because nothing like this had ever happened to us in our life. But the days, the weeks, and that house would make us believe in something else that we didn't understand. On another occasion, about a month after living there, something happened that did terrify us. We were in the dining room watching television as usual, and suddenly, without any warning, almost all the light bulbs in the house exploded, including some that were turned off. We were left in complete darkness, only illuminated by the television's glow, which had no issues. Logically, it wasn't a power surge, since neither the refrigerator nor the TVs nor any other device had problems. The electrical installation by that time was completely new, and what scared us the most was that at that moment the cold was even more intense, and that light bulbs that were off exploded. Something very strange, I think, and this I thought over time, that what inhabited this house simply wanted to remain in total darkness. This didn't happen just once. Since that night, it was practically usual to find more than one lamp broken or burned out without any explanation. It was during those days that noises also began to be heard, but inside the house. My son heard them first, and then the two of us. We could hear footsteps, whispers, voices, bangs. It was impressive, and as the days went by, it got even worse and much more evident.
One night I was lying down, and in the dining room, it felt like the chairs were being dragged across the table, like they were being pushed back. I went out to look, and the chairs were intact. It felt like the pots were being covered and then covered again strongly. Nothing. The months went by and it was getting worse each time. It was worse because we were in the best of conditions, and we would wake up in darkness when we left the lights on because they would burst. The light bulbs in the house.
It was even worse when we started to feel watched, I guess, a bit because of everything that was happening, but the feeling was very clear. Surely someone who experienced something similar will understand what I'm saying. Until one morning, the physical aggressions began. My husband woke up with a pain in his face in the middle of the night. When he looked in the mirror, he had several scratches on his forehead, cheek, and neck. Of course, it could have been him asleep, or maybe me sleepwalking, but both of us had and have extremely short nails, to the point of not being able to scratch. That's when we started to get much more scared, because whatever was living with us in that house was angry, and it was more than evident that it didn't want us there. Days went by, and those injuries kept adding up on our arms, on our backs, on our legs. He often realized it immediately. He would wake up in the morning feeling pain and burning, while other times he would feel the exact moment when something hurt him during the night. We made the decision to adopt a puppy, and it was very curious what happened with him from the very beginning.
And that puppy would stay at the front door of the house. And when I called him, he would look at me and seem to start crying. He would whine a lot and back away. And I had to go get him and bring him with me. He would snuggle against my chest and stay there. I remember it well. He didn't want to go into the room.
One afternoon, a very strong putrid smell appeared out of nowhere. Where was it coming from? We didn't know. We checked every corner of the house and it was impossible to get rid of it. I should also clarify that many times, as strong as it was felt, it would stop in a second without us doing anything. The house was always perfectly clean. We are a Catholic family and we never got involved in strange things, like Satanism, spiritualism, magic, among many other things. The curious thing, and it's something that had never happened to us before, was to start having nightmares every night where there were demons, injured people, beings. Horrible. And I realized that we all had the same problem when my boy confessed to us that he was having these same dreams, without knowing, of course, that we were having them too. It was quite some time later when some neighbors I spoke with told me that before it was abandoned, it was inhabited by several families who tried to live there. And they couldn't do it, leaving in a few weeks, or rather escaping.
One day I crossed in front of the house. There was a kiosk and I crossed, and the lady from the kiosk says to me, "You? Are you the lady who moved into the house across the street?" Yes, I tell her. She asked me, "How are you doing in the house?" And when she said that, I was left thinking. And I said, do I tell her or not tell her what I'm going through? Because I had that fear that they wouldn't believe me, that it's part of my imagination. I didn't know how. I started asking him. He said I've been living here since 1979, and in that house, as far as I can recall, they inhabit it, they uninhabit it, they inhabit it, they uninhabit it. No, nobody wants to stay there because a woman died there, a woman was killed there. And she tells me at that time that I was living here. She tells me a time a little after I came to live here. A lady used to live there who performed illegal abortions in that house, and about the murder of this lady that she told me about. She says it was about 10 years before I moved into that house.
That afternoon, I told my husband about what I had learned, along with what several neighbors had said about the house when he came home from work. But he remained doubtful. He didn't believe that the simple death of a woman would cause so much activity. There, surely something else had happened, he said. But what? We didn't know yet. One night, I woke up in the middle of the night, very agitated, because I felt a person standing next to me. I even felt their breath on my face. It was terrifying. And when I turned on the bedside lamp, there was absolutely no one. My husband got up, we checked everything, but it was useless. We knew we wouldn't find anyone. I got up because I couldn't sleep, and when I was in the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water, something grabs my hair and gives me a very, very strong pull that almost throws me to the floor. I let out a scream more of terror than of pain. I ran to the bedroom, closed the door, and didn't come out until the next morning. Days later, we couldn't take it anymore. It was horrifying to be in the house. So, following a recommendation, we went to see a woman who supposedly performed healings and energy cleansings. We spoke with her, we told her absolutely everything that was happening and had happened since the first day. We even made her a little map of the house to show her where each thing was felt, where the noises were heard, where the rotten smell was felt the most. We told everything. A few minutes later, she pointed to one of the rooms in the house and told us there was a very violent death here. It's worth noting that this woman didn't know where our house was. She wasn't even from Barranquilla. Therefore, that coincidence in mentioning the woman's death, just as the lady from the kiosk said, was something very, very intense. She then told us to light a candle that she herself gave us at an exact point in the house. We did just that very night when we arrived and before going to sleep.
Every night, it was at 1 in the morning, the scampering above the roof, but it wasn't the typical cat scampering. That is known, it was footsteps. It was inside my house, feeling that things were falling and going to see, and there was no one, there was nothing was out of place. It became unbearable, like my husband woke up scratched, so to speak. And we no longer knew what to believe. We were on the verge of depression. I was on the verge of depression. I didn't want to leave the house. I would lock myself inside the house and wanted to stay there, and I wasn't absorbing. This lady tells me, she says, look, she is attached to your husband. She is absorbing his energy, and she is a woman. So go and light a candle. That night we did exactly what this lady told us. We lit a candle and went to sleep. We had left all the lights on because we felt like they were coming and standing at the door of my room. And how did they leave? My little dog would fall asleep at the foot of my bed and bark all night. And it's like something made him very scared. Like it was hurting him. So we started watching it and went to sleep. We woke up at 3 in the morning and it was pitch black. Everything was dark. All the lights in the house had blown out, and there was one left, which was the bathroom light, which blew out as soon as we woke up. We were very scared because we knew that presence, that entity, was stalking us.
We were terrified because there seemed to be no way to get this entity out of the house. The nights passed, some quieter than others, until it appeared to me. It was one of the worst moments I've ever experienced in my life. My husband had to work all night, and my son was sleeping at his grandmother's house, so I was alone at home. Perhaps that entity waited for the exact moment. I remember perfectly that I stayed on the dining room couch watching television until I got sleepy. I turned it off and went to sleep, but before that I went to the bathroom. I went in, left the door open, and while I was brushing my teeth, something happened. I had the mirror in front of me, to my left the shower, and to my right the door, where I see out of the corner of my eye that a person walks very slowly a few steps and stops right under the door frame. Stands still, looking at me in silence. I was paralyzed. I had this completely dark and very cold entity just about 50 centimeters from me. I was at a loss, unsure whether to scream, turn around, face it, or shut my eyes. You can be sure that in a moment like this, you have no idea how to react. So I closed my eyes and started to pray, or at least I tried. As soon as I said the first word, all the lights in the house went out. It may sound like a movie scene, but it occurred exactly as I described. I looked to my right and this entity was no longer attached to me. It was standing closer to the entrance door, still in the same position, completely still and watching me. Even though I couldn't see its eyes or anything like that, I knew it, I felt it. It was staring at me. I closed my eyes again and didn't stop praying. That's when the scurrying started, the one we always heard on the roof, but this time it wasn't outside. It was inside our house, everywhere, and with an intensity that scares me right now as I tell you. After some time, things settled, and seizing the opportunity that the black figure had moved, I acted. I ran outside and stayed there until morning, when my husband returned. That morning we had an intense argument. I urgently wanted to leave that house. It was killing us slowly. It was stealing our joy, love, our energy, everything. I know it seems impossible, but it was even worse than everything I'm telling. The most frustrating thing for me was that he was not uncomfortable in the house. He suffered just like me, everything that happened, and even worse, because of the injuries. And yet he wanted to stay, because he said that was our home, and there we would continue to be happy. A happiness that only he saw and that had evaporated a while ago. I felt totally alone and desperate, but it couldn't be much more.
I start digging to plant a plant. I find a little box. Inside that little box was a photo and it was tied up. The truth is that I didn't want to touch it. I opened it and saw that the photo was tied with a black ribbon. I covered everything up and left it there. Then, talking with a neighbor, I didn't go out much, so the neighbors didn't see me much. They were older people. Most of them asked me, "Did you know that the lady who lived here was killed?" Yes, they mentioned something about that to me, the previous tenant told me. The previous people who were here, who were living in the house, left because they felt strange things in that house. And I tell him what I was experiencing. But for me, it's a hell because I'm scared. My son is scared. My son was a 6-year-old boy who was even scared to play. He would ask me, "Mom, is the bad lady here again? Is the lady angry?"
Anyone can imagine the desperation I lived with. A neighbor told me that the last owners had abandoned the house, leaving absolutely everything. One night they left and never returned. Another neighbor I began chatting with frequently. He confessed to knowing about this woman's crime and also told me that, according to him, her soul would never find peace. Without a doubt, he was absolutely right. The thing is, everything stayed the same or even got worse at times. Our life turned into hell. We had no peace. And while we came to an agreement to move, we had nowhere to do it, nor the money, since all our savings went into the purchase and repairs of this cursed house. We were like this for more than a year and a half. The last few months we tried to spend as little time as possible inside the house, because it was something terrifying. You could hear noises, voices, you could see a shadow that went back and forth everywhere. The lights kept burning out. The cold was tremendous. The overall atmosphere was horrible. More than our house, it felt like we were in a tomb.
We decided to sell it because it was unbearable. We lost a lot of weight. Things were going very badly for us. Everything started happening since we moved from that house. Things were going very, 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 very badly for us. I would faint for no apparent reason. I had fainting spells, like I would become paralyzed and faint. We started to have less time to sleep. We couldn't sleep because if we tried to sleep, we felt that breathing. We felt like someone was lying in the bed and it was horrible. So we decided to sell it, and I took some pictures of the house to be able to show them to the person who was going to buy it. And in 2 of those pictures, you could see this person, this entity, this woman who had been stalking us for a year and a half. I took a picture of the back with the window open in my room, and this woman was poking her face out. I took it with a tablet that was my son's, and that tablet, for no apparent reason, stopped working.
Sometime later, we managed to sell the house, and absolutely everything that was happening to us calmed down. We never again had paranormal experiences like at that location. I completely don't know if it is inhabited today or not, but like its previous owner, we also don't want to approach it, not even to see it from the outside. Thank you very much for making it to the end of this video. Don't go anywhere, because I left a small fragment to finish the story. Friends, many thanks to all who support the channel, either by sharing these stories, leaving comments, with financial contributions, and always being present in each of the episodes. Really, thank you. I would love for you to tell me what you think about everything you heard today, and now yes. See you in a few days, and as always, I send a big hug to everyone.
Because when I lived there, I even had thoughts of taking my own life. I was nearly depressed, locking myself in and not wanting to go out. I had strange dreams. I even dreamed of a dark figure with horns. It looked a lot like a donkey, a mule, but with horns. And it dragged as if it had red eyes and very black fur. I always saw it inside my room or in the hallway. In my dreams, when I dreamed it, that I saw it, or I don't know if I was seeing it, when Bosie was near me and I couldn't see him. I no longer knew what was real. We heard voices, my boy, asking me, "Is Mrs. Marla there?" "Yes, Mom, there's my little dog, who sometimes even peed himself out of fear of not wanting to go to my room. He didn't want to enter. I feel a lot of fear. And as far as I know, the person who bought us was there, I think. Less than a week and left. And I don't know if anyone will inhabit it now or not, but I hope no one else will inhabit it. Because there really is a very dark and very evil presence in that house. And I'm not the first person who lived it. We are not the first person who lived it. And who felt very, very, very dark and very negative things in that house. And did that house really incite you to do very, very ugly things? We came to the brink of going crazy.